Hi, guys. It's me, Mrs. Fuster. I'm going to read you this story today. It's called Curious George Plants a Seed. Maybe you know our friend Curious George. He's a pretty familiar character. And it's the time of year that we're planting a lot of things outside, seeds and flowers. So let's see what happens to Curious George. Curious George plants a seed. Jumpy Squirrel was very busy. George was curious. What was Jumpy doing? Can you see Jumpy Squirrel? He's digging a hole in the ground. Bill, the boy next door, told George, Jumpy buries acorns and nuts. He stores them in the ground. He can dig them up later when he is hungry. That gave George a great idea. George buried the orange juice. He buried the butter. He buried the bread. He was glad to find a good place to store food. Now, do you think that that was a good idea? Thumbs up or thumbs down? I'm not sure you can bury food in the ground like you do seeds. When the man with the yellow hat came home, the kitchen was empty. Where was all the food? Now look at George. He looks happy. But how do you think the man with the yellow hat feels? That's George's friend that he lives with, if you're not familiar with the Curious George character. I don't think he is very happy. George proudly showed his friend. Look at his face. Can you think of a word that might describe how he might be feeling right now? George, orange juice and bread are not for burying, the man in the yellow hat said. They cannot be stored in the ground. His friend showed George a peanut with a sprout. George was puzzled. Puzzled, what do you think that means? It means he was confused a little bit. This peanut grew into a plant, the man said. Seeds and nuts grow out of the ground if they are not eaten first. George thought he understood. If a little peanut could become a big plant, what would a rubber band become? Can you see George's thought bubble up here? If he thinks he buries this rubber band in the ground, it might turn into this big floating tube. What would a feather become? Can you see what he's thinking? If he buries this feather, what it might become? So I don't know about you, but I think George is still a little bit confused. George dug lots of holes. He buried lots of things. Soon the house was empty. The man with the yellow hat was surprised. That's the word that I was thinking of when we saw the man in the yellow hat on that page when he first saw what George did. Were you thinking the same word? George, umbrellas and chairs are not for burying, the man with the yellow hat explained. They are made by people. They are not going to grow. Seeds and nuts will grow. A few days later, George saw something new in the yard. It was a sprout. A sprout is what comes up first when a seed starts to grow. Look, George, said his friend, a seed you buried is growing. I wonder what it will be. Can you see what George is doing in this picture to that scene? What do you think it's going to be? Soon there was a beautiful sunflower in the yard. George had a green thumb after all. That's a funny saying, a green thumb. I don't think his thumb is green. If you have a green thumb, it means you're good at growing and keeping plants and gardens. So, can you tell what grew? My favorite flower, sunflower. So, George must have buried a sunflower seed in the ground when he was doing all of his burying. Maybe they had some sunflower seeds in their house because you can eat them. So, you guys are maybe planting at your house. Okay, don't plant the butter or the apple juice, all right? But have fun planting this spring. See you later. Good job.